evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Let's see. Tonight, February 17th, we are on episode 102, and as promised last week, this is our Q&A episode. So that being said, what we're going to do is I do have some questions written down from previous podcasts. We'll answer those. Once we get a few people in here, we're going to answer your guys' questions. And as I've been saying, nothing's off the table, providing it's fairly family friendly. We do like to do our podcast for everybody. We want everybody to enjoy these. I mean, honestly. So yeah, I mean, as long as it's not, too crazy and out there or adult specific, I don't mind answering anything. I'm sure Ben will at least have a few giggles and answer pretty much everything too. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? We look forward to hearing from you. So we are waiting for people to come in because this is the start of the episode and all that good stuff. So the other thing that we're going to do tonight, Ben, is we do have a t-shirt to give away, do we not?
Yes. Well, the shirt does not actually exist yet, but the design is there.
So the potential of a shirt existing to give away is still on the table.
Yes. There will be a shirt, I promise you.
Hello, Duncan. How are you tonight? Thanks for jumping on. So yeah, I do have a couple things that I've picked up from other episodes that I figure we can answer right away, Ben. And that will get the ball rolling, give some time for people to come in here. I do see we have some people falling into the comments now. So you want to just jump right into that and we'll get the ball rolling right away?
Sure thing, boss.
All right. So I got one from Danny Swan. I think it was asked last episode. So his question was gear you used to always take, but never used, so you got rid of it. So, I mean, I guess to simplify that, what's a piece of gear that you always used to take with you, you had to have it, but you realized you never actually used it, so it kind of got the turf?
Should be a ton of this.
I know, right? You know what? I have one, and I'm going to mention it, and people are going to roll their eyes at me. Mine was I always brought an abundance of glow sticks, in all honesty. I always thought, crack this sucker open. It's good, long lighting, stuff like that. It was just something I never got to use, and especially after I got the UFO light from talking to you and picking one of those up, one of those candle things. Yeah. Glow sticks, they kind of end up in Lily's toy room more than anything now.
Yeah, the kids love to take that. I can't think of any one specific thing. I often take a bunch of stuff just for fun, and some of it just never does get pulled out.
I have another one too.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I had a habit of taking a cook kit that was way too big for what I needed. It's probably sitting over there. I could probably dig it up, but it had... so it was like a small pan with a small pot, 2 lids. I think there was a bowl flipped on top of the whole works, and then there was 2 cups inside it. Very standard kit, and I'm like, oh man, this is great. This is going to do everything I need. It's not that big, and to be fair, it wasn't that big. Stainless steel, had a copper bottom, real nice set. I only ever ended up using my GI cup or the 1 pot. So, I mean, everything else was just bulk. It was noise. I just didn't use it. Still, I'm not harking on anybody that takes a kit like that. In principle, in my mind, it's still an amazing kit. The reality is, I just didn't use all of it. So it was all that extra space in my backpack, a little extra weight. I mean, we're not talking a ton, a half pound maybe. But still, I just never used it. So it all boiled down to what I now use, which is my GI cup, the lid to it, and my canteen, because it all literally nests together. It goes in its own little pouch. That way, if I want to drop my kit bag and go for a walk, I still got that stuff with me, and I can bring my ferro rod or a lighter, make a fire, and I can eat while I'm on the go, or if I want to make a cup of tea, whatever. It just all came down into that one little kit, and that's basically all I use now. And yeah, Dave, glow sticks should be for emergencies. The reason I used to take them with me was because I was just getting into hammock camping. Ben got me onto that, and I thought it'd be a great way to snap one open, hang it on a guy line, something like that. When I was walking back at night, I've had to get out to, go pee or something like that. I wouldn't trip over the ropes. Like, once again, fundamentally, still a great idea. Reality is I just don't use them. The UFO candles that we're talking about, Ben got me onto one of those as well, of course. If you guys haven't noticed, the the regular method is for me to adopt all of Ben's ideas because they turn out to be better than my own when it comes to hammock camping. Anyway, because I mean it's great.
Sorry about it.
But yeah, once we got the UFO candle lantern,
You
that's
see
kind
it.
of what I take. Oh, UCO, sorry, not UFO, UCO. The UCO candle lantern, that has kind of become my go-to because it offers a little bit more light, and I don't know, I just like it better. Just because it's a warmer glow. I don't know. The glow sticks, I guess, in principle, are still better. Just realistically for me, I didn't use them as much as the UCO light, so I kind of switched off for that. And I do still faithfully take the UCO light on. I'm gonna go with 90% of my trips out.
Yeah. Um, I still haven't thought of a lot of things that I took a lot of and never used it. But I have always really, like, at the end of a trip, I'll try and sit down and go through my kit and think of what was I using, what do I not. Now I still overpack. I always take extra clothes that I don't really need.
I'll be right back,
Uh,
Ben. Just keep chatting.
sure. Um, and I'll often take, like, toys. And I say toys is kind of a loose term. It could be just some kind of gadget or thing I want to take just for entertainment value. So those are the things that I take and don't generally get to use because I just don't need them. Um, and that includes everything from cards to slingshots to just fidget toys, just something that I think I might need. But I can't say I take them every time. I take them once in a while, especially depending on who I'm going with, and just to see if it could be some kind of entertainment value in case we get bored.
So Duncan asks, "How about the 12 knives?" I'm gonna be honest with you, Duncan. I used to go into the woods with 3 to 4 knives. I still go into the woods with about 3 to 4 knives. But each knife kind of serves a purpose. I do have an all-around hip knife, which I wear on my belt, and as I'm, going through camp or anything like that, it just stays with me, and it's my go-to knife for doing a variety of tasks. But then I do have other knives I bring with me that do specific tasks better than that knife actually would. So I have a small knife if I want to do some carving. I have a larger knife for doing, like, if I have to get a batoning, or a knife that's a lot more robust, but maybe won't hold an edge, and I can beat on it. I can cut stuff with it. It's kind of my, I don't want to say my sacrificial knife, but it's like my workhorse knife. You know what I mean? Um, so that's three, and then I generally just kind of keep like a folder in the bottom of my bag just in case, for whatever reason, if I want to throw it in with my canteen or something like that. It just gives me a secondary knife to go out with. So typically I still go with 3 to 4 knives. I did that from the get-go, and I still kind of do it now.
I'm similar there. There's usually at least one knife or knife system in my first aid kit. I usually have a pocket knife plus a belt knife, and then there's usually a knife in my cook set. So there's at least there 4 knives on me, and sometimes definitely a few extra ones. But to me, similar to you, like, a small folding knife is great if I need to whip out a quick little roasty stick or a small tool or something. And then the bigger one would be more of an all around uh, knife. And then I try to keep one that's relatively clean for cooking and stuff. So I have
Yeah,
that.
and that's kind of the idea. Is the knives kind of have purpose, right? So yeah, Dave, 8 knives is enough for anyone. 12 is just too much. And that's kind of it. I mean, might not go overboard, but I still take a few. And what I disappeared to grab there was, this is the UCO lantern, in case anybody was asking. Um, so this is kind of what I take now. And literally, it's just got a little candle in there. You can light it. I usually hang it on a ridge line or something like that. That's a little just at the end of my um, hammock setup, and then if I want to, you can pull the shade down, blow it out. I have left this going. If I was going to take, if I was going to zonk out and there's multiple people and things like that, that way there is kind of a little bit of a light there. But I mean, warning on that is you do have an open flame going, though it is a pretty small little survival candle style. So use your own judgment on that, and don't judge me for what I do with that.
So that thing actually has an interesting thing. I think it has a BTU output of like 1,700 BTUs.
Yeah,
And
it does have a little. I left the reflector and the other stuff over there. It's probably written in it though.
the 3-1, the candelabra or whatever it is, that apparently puts out about 5,000 BTUs, according to the
Oh,
box.
the big one. I've seen them
Yeah,
trying to cook eggs or cook a meal
yeah.
on it. I think is the idea behind that. But
Um,
well, what did we just get? I have no idea. It's not for this, so I'm going to ignore it. So yeah, how many hours on one UCO candle? I think they sell them as like 9 hour candles. Does that sound right, Ben?
I
Um,
think you get more out of the beeswax than the other one, or vice versa.
yeah,
There's
one you
two.
get a little more, one you get a little less. But I mean, 9 hours is not a bad ballpark, honestly. I get a full
And
night burn out of it. But I mean, I guess when I'm out in the woods, I only sleep for 6 to 7 hours.
yeah. And Mac apparently sells a candle that fits in it, but it's not listed for that. And they said it's a few dollars cheaper um, overall for a set or whatever.
Mm.
And I think you get a similar burn time out of it, 6 to 9 hours or something along the lines. So
And I
they're
have.
very good.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So they're really good. I camp with it. A lot of people I camp with have them, and it's great if you're in like the parks. You stick one in the outhouse, and it just means when you get to the outhouse, it's always got a little light in it. I hang them at the end of my hammock. I just put them where I think I need them, and it's just a small, constant light. It's not so bright that it's going to keep you awake or you know.
No, but
Uh,
it's a warm glow.
yeah,
It's more cut, and the reason I got rid of it next to a glow stick, going back to that, is it's a more comforting light. You know what I mean? It's a cozy light to fall asleep to, if that makes any kind of sense.
oh yeah. It doesn't take away from the experience. Where some of the ones you can buy, like some lights, it's very harsh, and it kind of reminds you that you do have technology there, and you're not as far away from. But with that little, it's just a candle. It's next to, it's just enough light to sort of allow you to see and not get, trip over things, but not so much of a light that it's stealing from the experience, if that's the word, I think.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of completely it, Dave. So yeah, 9 hours. Yeah, it's a wicked little system, and they go on sale sometimes. Really, really good priced. I think normally they're like what, $36, Ben, something like that, 30, $40, somewhere in that area. I think I managed to get mine on sale for $18, and it came with the neoprene case. And it has a little reflector that went with it too. So if you keep an eye on them, I picked mine up on Amazon. You can find them from other places. Just they'll drop in price, but even at 30, $40 in that price range, still totally worth the money, my opinion. And back to the candles, I have seen people make silicone molds and make their own candles and have really good luck with it. And the other thing is, UCO actually makes a UCO Mini, which is the opposite one that Ben and I were talking about there earlier ago, and it just uses tea light candles, and it's a super sweet little system too, and it's like that big, like half the size of that one.
Yeah, no,
But yeah, no, totally great. I'm just kind of following through the comments there. Yeah, so once again, everybody that's tuned in, if you guys have some questions, by all means, post them up. We'll try and answer them for you. I have a couple written down in Notepad here from previous shows that just kind of keep the ball rolling so we don't have any dead space. But honestly, this is about you guys that are tuned in. So ask away, and we'll try to answer as best we can and get through as many as we can in the time we have. So just another one from the list. To give you guys some time to get the creative juices flowing there. I can't remember what this one or where this one came from or who posted it because we said it out loud on one of our podcasts and I didn't get to see the live chat to see who posted it. But why does Ben not read the chat? So Ben does read the chat. He has a little different setup because he is videoing me through his laptop using what are we using? Google Meets.
yeah,
So it takes up the majority of his screen. So he reads the comments on the phone, so it's a little harder for him to like glance at the phone, glance up, glance at the phone, turn it on, all that crazy crap. So generally, I just read the comments only because I have like I think it's a 32 or 36 inch screen here, and I got more than enough room to have a full screen open over here with OBS on it, and then I have
Lazy.
chat on the side. Like I have plenty of room to put that stuff up. So it honestly just came down to ease. That's it. Eventually, I would like to get a second monitor, and I may put it up above this one, and that's where I'm going to keep the chat specifically, so it's always just right there, and I don't have to try and click through windows. But I actually got this down pretty good. So anyway, going back to the question that we had, what is the worst, quote unquote, fail you've had while out in the woods? And I guess that's open to interpretation, but I think he's reading them now. Yeah, I'd say Ben is reading them now. But so what's the worst fail you ever had while out in the woods bushcrafting, by yourself or with others?
For me,
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a few of them, but the one that sticks to my mind is when I sank the kayak in Keji. That was pretty bad. That nearly ended me, and definitely nearly ended a ton of my gear. We were lucky to come out of that alive. Um, But yeah, there's a few. There's actually a couple that involve Keji. There's a couple from back home. But yeah, the one that I think is probably one of the worst because we really put ourselves in a bad position was we tried to paddle the kayaks home in a storm, and the kayak filled up with water. And as a sit-in, you couldn't empty it out. So while we were in the middle of Keji Lake, which if anyone's been on Keji Lake, it's not a small lake by any means. I started to go down and ended up swimming back to shore with the painter line over my shoulders so that I could, because I wasn't losing it. But
So
that
your
was
boat
heavy.
became a submarine, and you were towing it back to shore.
It was like it was floating just below the surface. So it's just a little bit of the plastic was showing once it fell, and yeah, that did not drag through the water smoothly at that uh,
I would
rate.
imagine there'd be a lot of drag on that.
Yeah, no, that slowed me down, and the white caps hitting the shore and the jagged rocks. Yeah, now that I think about it, it's probably one of the stupidest things I've ever done. Uh,
I mean, that's fair. We all learn lessons.
yeah.
So I have two that come to mind. And they're both real short stories, so I won't get into them too long. And I think I've told this one before, but the first one, the one that I like to tell everybody is kind of a lookout situation, much like what you just said. There's when I first got into bushcrafting, or getting into more in depth to bushcrafting when I was in high school. Me and a buddy, we decided to make a snow shelter and try and crash in this thing for the night. We did not look at weather or anything like that. We had very limited, knowledge on building a snow shelter, no testing. Went way up in back of the woods behind his house, decided to dig this thing out and crash in it for the night. Next morning, well, overnight actually, temperature came up significantly. We had dug it a little too thin, and the whole thing collapsed on top of us. And I mean, it was a very rude, startling awakening. Don't get me wrong, but the bigger thing was we only had maybe 6-8 inches of snow on top of us, but over the whole shelter, it was quite a bit of weight that came down on us. I mean, it was kind of it was very startling, and I mean, if it went the wrong way, it could have been very bad. So I mean, the reason I tell this story is because when people think, oh, I'll just go in the woods and build a snow shelter, make sure you have a little experience building a snow shelter properly, like gauging your depth, make sure the weather's going to support it. I think we were like +4 or 5. It just everything was going against us. And the other one I had was I was out working. And I call it bushcrafting because I was out in the Cape Breton Highlands. You get flown in, you get dropped off, you count moose poop. It's a great time. But as I was going, and we talk about this a lot when it comes to safety, I was watching my compass, not watching where I was going. I literally walked off the edge. I'm not going to say of a cliff, but of a pretty good hill. And I tumbled down and I actually sliced my wrist. And anybody that's actually seen it, I have a scar that goes right across my wrist. And it was one of those times in the woods where I was like, holy crap. Yeah, like me. Yeah, you got a little one there too, but same kind of thing. And mine's going away a little bit. But anyway, this was probably 10 years ago now. And it was just one of those things when you first seen it and spread open, I'm like, holy crap, I hope it didn't hit anything important. And I had it covered over, and I mean, it wasn't gushing blood, not to get too graphic. So I was like, okay, I don't think I hit any veins or any of that major crap. So what am I going to do? and I ended up stitching my own wrist up, which was interesting to do because I had to use my left hand, and it sucked. Honestly, 100% sucked. It's now why I use or pack stitch tape. In all honesty, it is 100% why I pack stitch tape, because you just put it on, and they actually have something called stitch zips now, which is even better if anybody can afford those. Though I do think the price is a little high on them. It's like two pieces of tape that go on either side and a zip tie in between, and you just stick it on and zip until the wound is closed, and Bob's your uncle. Wrap it up, off you go. But anyway, in this instance, I was flown out. I knew it was at least 2 days before anybody was coming to get me. I was in the middle of nowhere. Even if search and rescue tried to get in, I was still quite a ways away. Um, so yeah, that was kind of look where you're going, and don't get too focused. Don't get the old tunnel vision on what's in your hands, because that's exactly what happened to me. It was a stupid slip of the foot that really could have ended way worse than it did. And crazy glue. I have used crazy glue in this instance. I don't think it would have worked because of how far it had spread on my wrist and just the area it was. But I had cut this thumb. I was finishing a 22 for somebody. They'd sent it to me for some work, and I was carrying it, and I was walking downstairs when I lived in my old house, and I fell, and it came up, and the sight took me on the inside of my thumb, and I went in. They gave me 16 stitches, and in 10 days is normally when they pull them out. They pop them out, and literally as they pop them out, the whole thing just opened back up. And they're like, well, we can try restitching it. And I'm like, nope, screw that. Gonna throw some super glue on it. Did that, and it worked fine. So super glue does have some uses, or crazy glue, whichever you want to call it. Have you guys ever tried cooking on a chunk of wood with center drilled out that burns from the center out? So I'm guessing like a Swedish torch, which Chris is mentioning there, or kind of the individual rocket stove idea. I have. I don't know about you, Ben. I did the chainsaw one where you take the block of wood, you cut a bunch of star into it, which creates a little spot in the middle, and then ran a auger bit through the center to kind of give it that rocket stove air siphon up, and it works really well, honestly, providing the wood is dry. If it's not 100% dry, not so good.
We had one of the like a log that was rotting out in the center, so we lost the core, and we put that on a fire one time. I didn't cook on it so much, but man, that thing was kind of like a torch. Everything's kind of sucked in through the bottom and one hole in the sides, just like the rocket stove, and flames shoot at the top. I remember that was a lot of fun. We did ruin a couple of wieners on it, I think, but we didn't like cook, like put the frying pan on. I think it would have killed it. But
What did I cook? I had an old cast iron frying pan. That's what I used, and I think it scorched the bottom off pretty bad. A lot of carbon buildup and stuff like that. But I was using a piece of softwood. Probably wasn't the best idea. A good piece of like dry maple or something like that probably would have alleviated most of those problems. Scott, out and about. What is your preferred boat? Kayak, pack boat, or canoe, and why? I think you're probably a little bit more able to answer this question than I am, Ben, seeing you're more of the boater.
sadly, it's the one I have. What was it to say? What's the best camera you can get? It's the one you have. And I kind of have a similar opinion for boats. Now, I do have a ton of boats, but I have no higher end ones. I don't have the Mad Rivers or the better versions. I don't have a nice Kevlar one. And if I could get one, like I looked at, is it the Spruce out your way? They sell them. Spruce Canoe or something like that.
Oh, you mean the one up?
Black Spruce, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I know who you're talking about now. I think it's Black Spruce, and it's the buddy just at the top of Thorburn there, or Mount McCollum's Brook, up
Yeah,
in there.
I've looked at a lot of those, and I would love to get a lighter weight uh, canoe. I can tell you my preference for size would be something around 13 feet. Um, I say that now. The reality is the smallest one I have, I think, is a 15 foot. I have a 15-foot canoe. I have a 16-foot canoe, and I have some 12-foot kayaks and a 10-foot kayak. And honestly, I use all of them as often as I can. And I switch back and forth depending on what I'm doing. If I have a lot of portaging, I have a little Pelican. It's 10 foot long. I think it weighs 34 pounds. It's not very heavy. And although slightly awkward for shape, it's easy to move. Uh, my canoes are significantly heavier, but I can carry so much more in them. So I take those a lot of times because I can split a lot of my load. I can take a passenger and we can share the weight. So that kind of helps.
I guess Black Spruce
Yes.
Canoe Company. That's the one.
Yeah.
And it's in Abercrombie. Sorry, I thought it
Yeah.
was top McCollum's Mountain. But yeah, Black Spruce Canoe Company. For me, my preference, and it's only because it's the one I got the most experience with, is I like a canoe. I like about a 14-foot canoe with a little bit of a keel on it. I don't like the flat back canoes, simply because I just never put a motor on one. And the only reason I like that is because I generally pack pretty heavy. As Ben can attest to, like a light pack for me is about 50 pounds. And a canoe is going to hold everything I want. And I'm just personally, I'm more comfortable in a canoe. The only real experience I had with kayaks was a little bit when I was younger in Miragamish Harbor and a little bit with Ben.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want, or not that I don't want to own a kayak. Yeah, I think that's right. I definitely want to get a kayak so I can get more used to it because I do see the advantages of it. But as it sits right now for me, I'm kind of a canoe guy. Though to be fair, I don't portage a lot. Old Roberto doesn't drag boats through the woods. He paddles, gets to where he's going, and that's where the boat stays. But if I had the ability to do it more, I probably would. But once again, I have to say canoe simply because that's what I got the experience with. That's what I'm comfortable with. I'm heavier and I take a lot of weight. Generally, with a kayak, it's not hard to find one that'll hold my weight. It's expensive to find one that'll hold my weight. I'm looking for something that's probably going to hold like 400 plus pounds. Because, I mean, I'm almost 300 myself. My bag's 50. I want a little carryover in case I want to take anything else. I'm better off just getting a canoe in my instance right now. If I can throw like $1,000 plus at a good kayak, I probably would. Reality, I don't got that pocket coin, honestly, at this stage in my life.
That the one you borrowed from me that time, that the Sun Dolphin, that's I think 450-pound weight capacity.
And it was a great kayak, honestly. I really liked it. I'd really like to get myself one. Once again, just get that money. Just seeing if there's any other questions. And yeah, Danny, that's exactly who we were talking about, was the Black Spruce Canoe Company. So
What?
What's that?
It's just Otto is going to be selling a 10-foot pedal drive yaks this year.
I didn't even know that. Find them extra to them. All right. So will you guys dream up more questions for us? What are we? We did the fail in the woods. Gear we used to have but get rid of. Yeah, see, that's the thing, Gary. I would love to be able to get a kayak like that that'll hold 800 pounds. I don't have 3K to spend. I don't have 1K to spend. Frankly, I don't have 20 bucks to spend 90% of the time. But if I could dream, I would love to get a really good kayak. I've seen some pictures of you being out on yours when you were out with Ben and stuff, and I'd love to get one like that, or at least try one. But I think if I had more experience with it, I would like a kayak better, honestly.
Gary's rig is really nice. It's a bit heavy. I would not want to portage with Gary's rig. But if you're out in heavy winds or big waves, I'm going to tell you, Gary's rig was, what do we nickname it? The battleship. In comparison, the boat that Jeremy had on that trip was like a cork on the water, and not in a good way. And he definitely sank.
And Ben had the Edmund Fitzgerald. If anybody knows the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, that joke will make a lot more sense. But so yeah, once again, guys, feel free to shoot any questions you got out there. We'll take them as they come. But another one from Alex that I had dumped there. Tool and equipment treatments. Like, how do you take care of your tools and treat your jackets and such? So tool and equipment treatment, when it comes to like knives, axes, things like that, I generally take really good care of them. For axes with anything with a wooden handle, make sure it no splinters, some sort of sealer on it. And the metal, same kind of thing. Make sure it's clean, free of rust. If you have any nicks, burrs, stuff like that, get it out. And I like to put a coat of oil on my stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you can put I'm going to be honest, and I can actually hear the eyes rolling as I say this. I have a ton of coconut oil. So, I mean, that goes on a lot of my stuff. And yes, I know it'll rot, it'll go rancid, all that stuff. But it takes a really long time. And generally, my stuff doesn't sit that long. And it's all natural. And if it gets on my food, no big deal, right? But there are other things like walnut oil, stuff like that that's really good for it. Tongue oil, I think, is another one that's good. I try to use stuff that's safe to be in my, like, foodware. So that's use your research. Anything I just said is literally going from my head. I could have lied to you. So definitely do some research. Don't go like, oh yeah, I put tongue oil on it and it's supposed to be I can eat it. I honestly don't know. That's just one that pops to mind. But I do know that coconut oil, virgin coconut oil, put all that in your knife. She won't rust. If it gets in your food, you get a little coconut taste and things are great. I even put a little around the bit of my axe. I mean, that's me. As for clothes, I wash them. The only thing I treat them with is if I can find it, because it's getting harder and harder to get it, is sometimes that Sawyer's bug repellent, because that stuff's great, but it's just hard to track down in Canada for whatever reason. You can get like the Farmer brand of horse spray, but I really do like the Sawyer's. What about you, Ben?
Uh, Pretty much similar. Generally, I'll follow any like manufacturers' recommendations for tents, tarps, stuff like that. I've tended to go more towards like sil nylon stuff that doesn't really take a lot of maintenance so far. Just keeping it clean and dry is the big thing. I think the hardest part for my gear is to clean and dry. So when you get home from a trip, take a few minutes, wipe it all down, make sure it stays dry, and then it's generally pretty good for your next trip. The worst thing in the world you can do is put your stuff away wet, and when you come back, it's rusted, moldy, and rotten. Sometimes all three at once, which is always a fun experience. The other thing for kit is anything with batteries, and I cannot stress this enough, and I'm horrible for it, is take those batteries out when you're not using your gear. Um,
Mm.
if you ever have a battery split, like I just lost the GPS this year to that. Uh, I'd used it a few weeks ago, never thought too much of it, brought it home, put it in the basement, said I'll look at that later. Came down later, turned it on. It wouldn't start, took it to the back, and it was all that white creamy stuff all around the battery. And I tried cleaning the thing up, it never did run again. So I think it's garbage.
Let's see. So there was a question. Most unique way of cooking over the campfire. Brother cooked bacon draped over a stick next to a fire. Worked great. So what's the most unique way we've ever used to cook over an open fire? Um, I'm gonna say Ben and I on our first trip out threw steaks right in the coals. Like
Yeah.
no pan, no nothing, straight on the wood, straight on the coals, cooked it up, and man, it was delicious. It might have been because it was hot. We were tired. Well, I guess it wasn't hot. It was fairly cool. Or at least at night it was. But anyway, we were tired and hungry, and it was delicious. But I mean, it worked really well. It didn't really have a whole lot of stuff stuck on the meat, which I thought it was going to have. It all kind of
Yeah.
came off. It was very enjoyable, honestly.
Um, I've also used like if you get it hot enough, if you put a rock close enough to the fire, you get it hot enough, and you do have to be careful with this. Just throw the meat right on the rock, or throw the vegetables, whatever you're cooking, right on the rock. If it's hot enough, it'll pretty well cook on that, like it's almost like a frying pan type
Mm.
deal. That kind of works. But like I said, do be careful, because putting something relatively cold on something like that, you may induce some additional stresses, and next thing you know, you got a cracked rock spitting things at you.
Yes, do not use river rocks that could potentially have moisture caught in them as well, because then you get kind of a steam popping explosion. I've done
Yes.
that, learned from our mistakes. But yeah, honestly, throwing it right on the coals was probably the most unique. Something I used to do a lot was take tinfoil And anything I want to cook, I'd wrap in the tinfoil and then just bury it in the coals and go on about my business while I'm, let the fire die down, just bury it in the coals. Go to camp, do whatever I'm doing, like set up my tarp, set up my tent, do whatever other little odds and ends need to be done, then just come back, dig out the tinfoil, peel it open, and boom, instant meal. You know what I mean? You do got to be careful doing it that way. Sometimes you can burn things and all that good stuff. But if you throw an onion or an apple or something in there that has a little moisture, it tends to get rid of the burning, my opinion.
I picked it up at Canadian Tire when they first came out. They were ridiculously expensive since then. But these little cast iron uh, pots.
Like a
Um,
Dutch oven kind of pot is what you're gonna lead to with
yeah,
this.
but it's small. Like the inside of it's not much bigger than say my fist size. So I have one of those, and I've often thought it would just take an at laying it right into coals with something in it. But the problem is it's small enough that it would barely be a meal, really.
Mm.
But that's why I have it.
I know fish wrapped in tinfoil. That was always my go-to method for that. But I mean that's it for us. But like I said, most unique, right on the coals, man. No nothing, just fire her on, let her go, and it was a pretty good steak. I mean, it was probably about a half inch thick, and I don't know, it was probably bigger than my hand. And literally, we just fired her on the coals. It was coming on night. It was hard to see if it was cooked or not. But we just gave it what we thought was going to be cooked, pulled it out, and Ben, you brought an actual marinated steak or something. You went high class.
So what I do is I take a steak and I put a bit of marinade in it. I put all my spices. I put it in a Ziploc bag and I freeze it. And then when I go camping, I take it and I throw it in my bag with the rest of my food, and it keeps the rest of my food cold. And generally, by the time I'm ready for supper on the first day, it's thawed, and yeah, I throw it right in. And in that instance, like you said, we just sort of threw it right on the coals, and I just ate it basically from the outside in. So as it was cooking, I was just cutting pieces off and eating it. So like, yeah, it was great.
It was awesome. It was one of the best steaks I ever had, honestly. Just used a
Someone
log
asked,
that was burning to cut it on.
someone asked here, Scott, about what processes more wood, an axe or a saw. Um, the saw probably is technically more efficient. I'm not really going to argue that. Depending on the type of wood, though, I still really enjoy my axe. Um, but especially if you're getting the bigger things of wood, the efficiency there, because you lose virtually no wood with a stove, with a
The
saw.
saw.
With an axe, you're chipping a lot of stuff up. When it comes to splitting it, though, I tend to lean towards the axe. So I like the combo, and I generally take the two. I also have the Boreal 21, like Gary. Uh, I may have owned mine longer than Gary, but I know once guys got to see mine, they started trying to steal it, especially
Yeah, the Boreal 21's a great saw.
24 would be pretty cool too.
And I have to agree with Ben. I'm an axe guy, mainly because the saw I have is not a big saw. It's a small kind of fold-up saw. If I could get my hands on a Boreal 21, I'd probably carry both, much like Ben said. But yeah, you can't beat the combo together. If you're just looking to cut wood, like literally, buck it up, you can't beat the saw. You're going to swing that axe to you're, dead tired if you're getting into any kind of good sized wood. As where with a saw, you're going to, bounce right through it. But as Ben said, when it comes to splitting, it's awful hard to split with a saw. I mean, you could run it down the lengthwise, but now you're getting into a whole lot more effort. Yes, you can baton it, but once again, if you get into, like an 8-inch stick, it's hard to baton 8 inches. Not that it can't be done, it can be done, but it's the effort expended. So therefore, like when Ben and I go out, he brings a saw, I bring an axe. If we're going out individually, we kind of bring both. Um, but it's going to be up to your personal preference. Take both sometime when you're not going too far in the woods. See which one you use more, because each have their place. If you're building shelters and stuff like that, an axe comes in real handy for narrowing things down, flattening things off. But a saw comes in handy for cutting stuff exactly where you want it and making nice, neat cuts. So that's a real hard question to answer, and hopefully, um, without feeling like a cop out, hopefully that got you a little bit of information on it.
Kind of interested about this Alice pack with the bow size frame.
pack with a bow saw is the actual frame of the pack. Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
A video of that. I'll have to look that up. Um, what was the last question I had on my list? So hopefully you guys have some more brewing up there. What? And it was from Alex again, and he said we always talk about the gear we like. What gear do we not like or have had very bad experiences with? I see the smirk.
Very bad. I guess every time I've tried to cheap out, I've oftentimes been like just really tried to cut corners. That's where I found like the worst experiences buying like a cheap no name sleeping bag or cheap tents, things like that. They tend to leak. They don't set up well. There's and the problem is, yes, you can make it work. Yes, they're doable, but when you think about it, the workaround that I spent on them was generally just not worth the effort. Like if I spent a little bit of extra money, I wouldn't have had to do the workaround and probably would have saved myself some time.
I mean, I have one that comes to mind, and most people know exactly what it is if they've had any experience with it. And I absolutely hate this item. And I've tried multiple types from multiple manufacturers at all different price points and different styles. And it is any kind of cable saw. Take it and throw it away. Just buy a saw. And like I said, I have tried some that are like $4. I've tried one that was $120.
Wow.
And to be fair, the $120 one worked better. But you know what? Just buy a saw. Honestly, saw is going to do way better. I haven't, and I love the idea of a cable saw, especially in like a survival kit. At one point, I was really big on like making survival kits or bug out kits or whatever you want to call them, just something you can keep in your vehicle. And if you got broke down, you could do the basics, like get yourself heated up. If you're not going to stay in your vehicle for whatever reason, if you had a rollover, some crazy crap like that, you could make a small shelter and signal for help. And a cable saw always stuck in my head like this would be the perfect thing if you can get the darn thing to work. And I haven't found one that actually works good. I have found some that technically work, but they work horribly. And 90% of them just don't work at all. Either the cape, like whatever they use for the cutting in it, like a lot of the cheaper ones is just 2 wires or 3 wires twisted together, and it's supposed to be the little spaces in between the wires is going to rub the stick apart or something like that. Yeah, no, you're going to heat that sucker up until it breaks. I've used ones that's like a big thick wire, and this is one of the more expensive ones. It's covered in granules. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like basically it looked like they rolled it in glue and dipped it in rocks. Worked great until all those things fell off. And then you were back to you're just heating it up until it breaks. The best one I have found, but is harder than hell to use, is the one that's basically a chainsaw chain with 2 handholds on the end of it. If you can get that sucker moving, man, that thing cuts wood.
Yeah.
But it is not fun to use. I would sooner just have a buck saw, in all honesty. It's worth the extra size, because once you're getting up into the chainsaw one, it's no extra weight. I can guarantee you that, because that thing's literally like, I think it was like 2 feet long. So picture a 2-foot chainsaw chain, and you have to sharpen it like a chainsaw chain. And if you get your rakers down too low and this thing hooks too much, you basically pull your arms out of socket. It's kind of a 2-person job, but it works the best, but still sucked, in my opinion. Like if somebody out there knows a cable saw that's like, this is the best thing ever, and I swear by it, send it to me. I will definitely find a way to rip it apart, because I have tried everything and they all suck in my mind. I have an open mind. If somebody can prove me wrong, I will admit it and I'll eat crow. But I have yet to find one that's any good.
I'm just picturing like trying to sharpen a chainsaw chain that's not on a bar, not being held nice and taut. That must be an awful fun
You
job.
have to put it in a vise. That's the only way I've found to do is you got to lock it in a vise and do it individually. Sharpening it in the field, no way that I have found to do it, unless you bring like a pair of vice grips or something and have somebody hold it, and even then it's going to be a shoddy job.
So, someone mentioned air mattresses. I have owned cheap air mattresses over the years. In fact, I spent one full year sleeping on an air mattress that used to routinely deflate on me in the middle of the night. It was horrible, uh, and not necessarily am I going to
Uh,
talk more with that. The one I have now, the Hybrid 8, works really well for me, but I have friends who have one and they say theirs deflate. I don't know why mine doesn't.
Mine hasn't deflated for the Hibernate 8. I find it's just a little too thin for me. I got to throw another sleeping pad or something under it. I mean, I
Yeah,
could sleep on it. Don't get me wrong. If I threw it in my hammock, I'd probably be fine. But just lay flat in the ground, I do find it just a touch thin. But once again, a little heavier. You know what I mean? If I lost, like 100 freaking pounds, I'd probably be all right on it because it's very well designed and it's
yeah.
super warm.
Um, I find it's doable. I've slept on it a few times. I actually had the opportunity to use mine on top of a cot. That was actually quite good. One of those like ultralight cots that just a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of like fiberglass bars and stuff. That was really good. Um, and the next one up here is knife brands that we hate. I have a lot of knife brands I love.
I was gonna say I don't specifically hate any one knife brand. I hate certain things about certain knife brands.
Eh,
And I see a few names being thrown out here like Spyderco, Groman, Schrade. I own. Do I own a Spyderco? No, I don't have a Spyderco. I have a Schrade that looks like it should be a Spyderco. I have a Groman, and I have
Yeah,
good success with it. It's a little Groman Skinner. It's great. Mel actually uses it. It's her go-to knife, and I've had no problems with it. Schrade, I have two Schrade knives I can think of. There's things I like about them. There's things I hate about them. In all honesty, and you talk for a sec. I think the Schrade's right there. If it's just sitting on top of my cabinet, I can show exactly what I hate about it.
so I have the a Groman. I do like my Groman, but unfortunately, my Groman does have a serrated section, which I don't overly enjoy. But that's more the particular knife than the overall brand. I have no real complaint about that brand, except I find the price is a little high for what you're getting. Um, but the market's bearing it. They're not going out of business as far as I can tell. So if you can sell a knife that's probably worth $50 for $150, then more power to you. I'm not going to complain. I just probably won't buy it. Uh, I have buck knives. I have a lot of brands. If I really didn't like it, it just kind of ends up in the bin and never gets pulled out. My sort of go-to for quite a while now has been, and this is as cliche as it gets, is the Mora knives, and it's simply because bang for your buck, I don't think you can get a better knife, uh, and that's mainly because it doesn't cost a lot. Now the garbage, that one still goes for quite a bit of money, and their little Elridge, I think it is the really tiny one, I
Hmm.
think is kind of overpriced, but if someone offered me one, I definitely wouldn't turn it away. You know what I mean? Like,
Um,
um,
so I grabbed a couple of my knives, and only because I'm going to tell you the things I dislike about my knives, and some things I do like about my knives, and less about brand. And the first is the Schrade, because that's the one I talked up. I can't remember what this is, a Schrade something or other. I actually won this. What is this? SCHF 59. And this was one of the knives I won at one of the Nova Scotia Bushcraft gatherings.
oh yeah,
Um, and I like the knife. I like the shape. The edge is okay. I find they don't hold the best edge. Both Schrade knives I have, but I've heard other people say they hold great edges. So I don't know if it's just me and how hard I am on it. But in any case, what I hate, look at that handle. Look at all that texture through that handle. You want to talk about something that creates hot spots? I don't know who did this and who thought this was a good idea, but I can tell you right now, worst idea on the planet is to make all this hard indentations on a knife handle that you're going to be working with for any more than 10 seconds. This thing is horrendous. I want to pull these two, I think it's Kydex or their form of Kydex. I have no idea. I got to pull that off. I got to talk to Jamie Harris or something like that, or whoever is good at making knife handles, and make me just a good wood handle for this, and this would be a great knife. Other than that, I can't use it that much. What's that?
I'll make you set of wood handles you want.
Get at her, man. That's the only thing I dislike about this knife. Everything else I like.
We got some mahogany down there, buddy.
Man, it could be freaking pine. I don't care. It's got to be better than that. But,
I tell you what I don't like in a knife is an overly thick blade.
Yeah.
Personally.
And you can get a little thick. And now I'm going to contradict that. One of the knives I use quite a bit is this sucker here. This is a knife I found in my four-wheeler when I bought it. It's a Winchester.
That's the Winchester, yeah.
That's the Winchester. And I love this knife. It's a little bigger than what I generally go with, a little thicker than what I generally go with. That is a fairly thick blade, but this thing balances it out nice. It feels nice in the hand. It feels weighted. It's a hefty blade, and it holds an edge probably better than any knife I own.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I have a cute little Winchester that I picked up from Walmart that I do like, and it sits in my pack. It's just unfortunately, and as much as I like it, the shape is just not quite ideal.
I mean, it's been probably, well, when did I get the bike? I got the bike, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago. I dug this out. It had a little rust on it. I cleaned it. I sharpened it. I haven't touched it since, and I used it hunting, bushcrafting, everything else. And I mean, it's still sharp enough at shaving the hair off my arm. And I've put this through everything. Like literally, I use this to clean my deer this year. I use this to baton wood. I've used this to do things that knives aren't supposed to do. And I've never touched it up. And I mean, I love this thing because it holds such a great edge. FRN. What, Chris, you mean the Schrade? Where's that Schrade knife? Is that focused in there at all, Ben?
Not for me.
I don't know how to get light on that. It's in a dark spot where my camera is, but anyway, like I said, this thing says SCHF59. So.
I know I'm pretty sure it was a Schrade on sale at Canadian Tire a couple years ago. I looked at. Every time I went in, it was there, but it was a big knife. It was like maybe a 12-inch blade, and I bet you it was every bit and more of a 1/4-inch thick at the spine. And the thing must have weighed a couple of pounds just on the steel alone. And I kept looking at it. I think it would be a great knife, but I just couldn't get over the thickness and the size. It just seemed too unwieldy, like more of a sword.
Yeah, the spine on that's a little thick too, but yeah, and I mean once you get too much, it's just not good. Now this is my hip knife, and I don't know how we got into talking about knives like this, but anyway, that's kind of my best all around knife. Honestly, I think it's a Noramark. Anyway, it's an older style knife. Can't remember where the heck I got this. Once again, probably free, found it or something like that. And that's my go-to hip knife because it's the thinness and length that I like just for all around stuff. But once again, I'm not married to any one brand. I like all my stuff. And this is that little Schrade folder that I thought was a Spyderco, but obviously once I get looking at it, it's not. And this sits at the bottom of my pack as my folder, and I like it, so I can't complain about it. And you want to know what's a good knife, Ben? And you're going to laugh at me for this, but this is my everyday carry, believe it or not. And it's huge, it's clunky, but I can't kill it. One of these little Maximum knives, man. Oh, it's upside down. Yeah, I love this thing for my everyday carry. Probably not so good in the woods, but for an everyday carry, dude, you can't kill this knife. The only thing I don't like is the blade sits a little loose in there, if you can hear it. So I don't care for that, but that's why it's my everyday carry. But I like it. I like the fact the blade locks, so if I set it down, it's not going to, somebody gets a hold of it, they're not going to cut themselves, something like that. Holds an edge good. And this is still a great knife, and a lot of people would actually, laugh at me for that because that literally came with a toolkit. I bought some ratchets or wrenches or something like that, and I'm like, oh, that's not going to be much of a knife. And it turned into my everyday carry.
I carry this little buck fairly frequently.
I got one of those too.
And I picked it up because it was on Canadian Tire for like $9.
Yeah.
I think it's a $40 knife normally, but it goes on sale for dirt cheap, like $10, $9. And I think I actually have a couple of them around. I think I may have still one in a blister pack. Um, the only problem I have is I do tend to damage the belt
Mm.
clip, the little
And once
pocket
again,
clip.
that's why I kind of went back to this one. This thing is like solid. And yes, Chris, I know it sounds loose. It locks up fine though. Believe it or not, that sucker, like, it doesn't come open. When it opens, it's good and locked. It's just, I don't know. They like, the lock should have been ever so slightly longer, but it locks good, handles good. I just, it's a little clicky and noisy, and I mean it goes up and down too. So the whole thing, I mean, the craftsmanship is not there. This is a knife that was included with some ratchets or wrenches from Canadian Tire, and I don't pretend it's anything but.
You know what? Actually, and it has its limitations. Don't get me wrong, but they're not overly heavy and they work quite well. Are these little like replaceable blade knives?
Yeah, I use those a lot when I'm working with hide, because you just turf the blade, put a new one in it, no sharpening, off you go.
Um, yeah, because I bought the little pucks, and I think there's like 100 blades in a puck, and I got like 4 or 5 of the pucks then, and I got two sizes, the big size and a small size. And honestly, these things weigh very little. The blade's completely replaceable. Um, and it has its limitations. You don't have a long cutting surface, but for doing like some small detailed work in it, oftentimes comes in handy. And you could easily throw one of those in a pack and not worry about it. Um, so it has its purpose for sure.
And I'm just going back to the comments. I've seen Dave there say he rolled an edge on a Schrade Kirky in about 10 minutes. And that's what I mean. I don't have good luck with the edges on those Schrades. I can get them nice and sharp. This one here is probably a fresh sharpening on it. I guess it could be sharper. I mean, it's still shaving hair, but barely.
I really want to try one of these open out. I've never had a chance.
Let's see. Is there any other questions down there? So, Abe, I guess we're rolling up on our hour here. We're at 57 minutes. Does anybody else have any more questions out there? It's been a Lansky. I've looked at those Lansky responders. What do you think of it, Chris? Not to ask my own question when we're supposed to be answering questions, but I'd be curious to see what you think. How do you not own an Opinel? I don't own an Opinel either. But
Honestly, like I've seen them. I've seen them at Lee Valley, a couple other places. I've seen them. I've seen the nice. I think the ones with the orange handle really appealed to me because I tend to lose things. I just every time I've seen one, there's something else that I needed to spend money on more than the open out. But I do love the idea, like the little twist lock system in it, the the simplicity. He asked my preferred thickness. I don't know if I can give you exact number, but definitely not a 1/4 inch. Not much thicker than maybe an 1/8 of an inch. Honestly, is good for me. I don't need a super thick blade. Um, Most of the work I do with a knife is relatively fine and detailed, and I want that precision. I want that. And when they get thicker, it just tends to split wood and cause me more problems. If I want to split wood, I would use an axe, and then I'm going with like an inch thick. You know what I mean? Like, but teach his own. I've seen people take thickly bladed knives out and do things that I struggle to do with smaller knives. I see guys take it. They don't take the axe at all. They do all the processing with a single tool, and it's one knife. So if that's what you like, if what works for you, then far be it for me to diss it.
I know a knife I don't like. I
Right.
actually know a knife now I don't like, and I'm sorry. I am going to pick on this specific knife. It's personal opinion. I don't want to dissuade anybody from getting one if they have gotten one, but once upon a time, you used to be able to get a less shroud knife. And I'm trying to think what it is. I showed you the one I had when I brought that box of crap that I had when we went
Yeah.
out to the lake. and I can't remember what version it was. It's not the high end version, it's the next one down. I did not like that knife. The handle was unwieldy heavy. The blade would not hold an edge. The fire starter that came with it was junk. The sharpener that came with it was crap. Um, it I liked the idea behind the design of the knife.
Yeah.
Um, but that specific knife. Now I heard whatever the top end one was different and it wasn't bad. Yeah, Columbus or whatever it is, the Lestrade Columbus. It just did not. It was not a good knife for me. They said that the end of it could be a pommel and you can hammer in spikes and stuff like that. I think when I tried mine, I had two of them originally because they went on sale. I broke it, um, and the handle was just very thick and heavy. For me, it was just not a comfortable knife at all. Like not in the slightest. I had the Bear Grylls one given to me, that was supposed to be its counterpart. Overall, I like the Bear Grylls one more. Neither one were that great of a knife. And honestly, most of these gimmick knives, as I'm going to call them, like when they throw somebody's name on it, they're just out there to try and make a buck. The idea that they probably had in their head hit mass market and then it was butchered. In my opinion, you know what I mean? It's probably not the end product that they were seeing in their head. It's a very overproduced, dumbed down version of what they wanted. So I kind of see where he wanted to go with that, and it didn't hit the mark, in my opinion. Not to dissuade anybody. If you get out there and you like the knife, all the power to you. Just for me, my personal preference, I didn't have much good to say about that knife by the end of it.
I haven't seen these in years, although I'm sure they still make them. Is the old Rambo knife? You know the one I'm talking about?
Oh my goodness, the old Rambo survival knife with the screw on end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you needed like a deep socket to tighten the blade that was going to come loose after you cut like
Yeah.
one or two.
The plastic
I,
handle that broke repeatedly on you. Sometimes you could get a good steel handle,
yeah.
but the blade still sucked.
Yeah.
Those
The
weren't
one
very
I
good
had,
either, but can those really be considered a knife?
well, knife like object.
Knife like object. I mean, technically, I got a knife here somewhere that's. Oh, I don't know where the hell it is. It's got like a dragon design to it, and I guess technically it's a knife, but it's more for show purposes than cutting. Let's go with that.
Those Rambo knives, I remember growing up, they had, you could put a little survival kit in it. So some fishing lines, some hooks, some matches. I don't know. I think there was a little wire saw in them. There's a bunch of stuff that came with them. And uh, I know when you got one, you thought you had it. Like, that's it. You were Rambo then. You could do anything in the world. And it's possibly one of the worst knives I've ever owned. Bar
Okay.
none.
So that Lestrade knife you guys were talking about in the comments, the Timagami or whatever the heck it is. Picture that with a terrible handle and a bladed steel that was just terrible for holding an edge, and that's what this other one was. Like, I think what you guys are talking about, and I can't pronounce the name and I apologize, is the ultimate idea of what he wanted for this knife, and what I ended up with was like the budget version of that knife or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we do have two more questions, and I guess that'll put us to our time limit, and then we'll have to give our T-shirt away, of course. So I'm going to answer this one first. Danny Swan, what do you sharpen with? Anything fancy or just a stone? So
I
go for it, bud.
I have a few diamond stones that I use. My favorite one, though, is just a little, I think it's probably about an inch wide, 4 inches long. It sits on a little wooden block with 4 rubber feet. I can't remember the brand of it. I've had it for years. That is my go-to. I also have a little ceramic rod that was given to me by a guy I met at the first Bushcraft gathering. Greg, I'm pretty sure his name was. His last name eludes me at this moment. I'll remember it in a few minutes. That I use. It's really good for putting a nice fine edge on after, but you don't create an edge with it. But I have a ton of other options down in the basement. Everything from your speedy, sharp carbide tip things to old-fashioned whetstones and stuff. And all of them have a time and a place for sure. But I think my favorite is the diamonds one. Find it's the simplest, quickest, easiest for me. I don't use a guide or anything, and I can fill it words off your page with some of my knives.
Um, so for me, it depends what I'm doing. Like Ben said, there's a time and place for everything. If I'm out in the woods, my go-to used to be kind of like what he said. It was a speedy sharp, but it was a specific brand. Lansky made one that was a pull-through carbide V. It was
Mm.
great for putting a quick edge on your knife, and then a diamond rod, or not a diamond rod, a ceramic rod or something like that, just to kind of hone it. But honestly, that's a quick edge to get you through when you're out there. Now, when I come home, I do have whetstones, but what I've been using recently and been having very good luck with is a Lansky sharpening system. I use the Diamond Lansky sharpening system all the way up to, I think it's 6,000 ceramic on it or something like that, the Ultra Sapphire, whatever the heck it's supposed to be. And much like Ben said, with once if you take the time to do that properly, and I will say this about the Lansky system, if you're just trying to throw a quick edge on a knife, throw it out the window. You're not getting a quick edge on a knife. Like, it'll cut, it'll be okay, but it'll be no better than like dragging it through a carbide or rubbing it over a harsh whetstone. But if you take the time, and by time I mean when I did this knife originally, that's what this was done with, was the Lansky set, and I think it took me somewhere around 3 to 4 hours from start to finish through everything to get it the way I wanted. It is an amazing sharpening system. But that's just me, sitting here tinkering with it, playing with it, learning how to use it, playing with angles and stuff like that. I'm sure once you get it down, it'd be fine. But I mean, once you get that down, you can literally like peel the ink off paper. You can set a knife on a receipt. You know what kind of paper that is, like that,
Yeah.
crunchy receipt, and it'll just like glide through it. It makes probably the sharpest edge of anything I've had here, but it takes time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it all again depends what I'm doing. If I'm out in the woods, I use one of those Lansky pull through things. Just if I damage my blade and I just need to get an edge back on it, I carry one in the backpack. If I'm home and I really want to do a good job, I'll grab the Lansky system. If I want to freehand it, to be fair, I'm not the best freehander. I'm not bad. I can make things cut, but then I'll give my go on that. But I think I still got a little bit of improvement to go there.
This is a little one I picked up. It's Camelus, Camelus from Walmart. And the ceramic on the bottom of that is actually pretty good. And it has the pull through options, a few other things. So it's got the carbide pull through, the ceramic pull through. You can 3 slots for 45, 30, and 20-degree angle. Plus, it has the screwdrivers for taking it apart your knife, tightening it up. And I don't think I paid a lot for that. But I have a few different sharpening systems around. I don't have the Lansky style system. I've always wanted one. I just never pulled the trigger on it.
It's the time with that, in all honesty. And Chris says you can get a better edge on whetstones. You just need proper technique. I am going to, and this is personal experience. We actually, and the whole reason I got this Lansky set was at work, and I can't say where I work, but anyway, we send our knives out to get sharpened professionally. And they use the Japanese water stones, and they go all the way up to, I think it's 10 or 15,000 grit. And we actually put one of the knives that came back from there up against the Lansky system. And honestly, at the end of it, they were so close. So close. The other one was a lot more polished, if that makes any sense. Like, it was just, I couldn't match the smoothness on it. And I think that's where at a certain point you're really getting into fine details, is that super smooth, super slick surface. And that's getting up into those super high grits. Like I said, they go to 10 or 15,000. I can't remember. As where the Lansky system is either 3 or 6,000. And if the stones kept going up, I would almost say that you would be hard pressed to see a difference between them at my level. Anyway, now you get like a master sharpener out there that's going to take 7 days to sharpen a knife. Guaranteed they're going to make a better job. But for common Joe Blow like me, I would put that Lansky system up against sending my knife out to get professionally waterstone sharpened.
And I hate to say his name, but Wrangelstar had the Russian sharpener. You ever see that? That was a system I would have liked to got in my hand.
I would have. I actually tracked one of those down.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get it shipped to Canada. Say it would be. And once again, only personal opinion. I mean, everybody's gonna have an opinion. There's no right answer to that question. Um, no, Chris. He does the. I know the commercial sharpener you're talking about. It's like the Speedy Sharp or Ever Sharp or whatever the heck that is. We ended up getting one of those on site, one of those $7,000 professional motorized sharpeners. Um, that way we didn't have to send our knives out anymore. But the guy that I'm talking about in Truro, he uses the actual whetstones. He soaks the stones, does it by hand. We went up, I watched. It was all that good stuff. In all honesty, like I said, he did a really good job. Unfortunately, I can't mention his name because of the contract with work and stuff like that. But I will say, if you look for professional whetstone sharpening in Truro, you'll probably find him. But no, yeah, he was he was an amazing guy at sharpening and super cool to talk to. Anyway, the last question we had on here, because I think it's cool. Scott, out and about, recommend a favorite bushcraft YouTube channel. And I mean, can you get better than Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures?
No, you can't really.
Oh, of course you can. But I mean, instead of self-plugging our own channel, there are a couple good ones out there.
There's one right here on the chat. I can tell you
Yeah,
that.
Dave's Real Big Monkey 1. Check his stuff out. I mean, it's a great channel to check out. Some local fellas, if you're looking for local channels like to Atlantic Canada, Mark Young does some great stuff. He got a lot of DIYs on there. Real
Gary
cool
Lynch,
cat. Gary Lynch.
he's on the chat.
What's some other local ones? Jeremy, Lone Wolf 902. He's got some stuff up there. He does a lot of reviews on tents and stuff like that if you're into that kind of thing. Do you know
I think,
one? Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I think he's starting to get away from it. I may start watching his stuff again. I didn't honestly. It got too much into the reviews. I wandered away, but I think I've noticed the last few looks like he's just camping again. So
Oh, okay. Much like Ben, I kind of stepped away from it. Not for any fault of Jeremy's. Don't get me wrong. Not saying anything like that. It's just I don't watch a ton of gear reviews unless I'm specifically researching something. Yeah, Wayne Colcraven. He's in New Brunswick there. He's got some good stuff. There's one I'm trying to think of. The Bartons. I don't know if Mike's still doing stuff or not. Is he still making videos? But that used to be a good YouTube channel. Was the Bartons. Um,
what was the question about my hair? Too? I got to go back.
yeah, I missed that too. So you look for that. You want to know a real neat channel that I watch a lot as he puts videos out, and you probably know it, is Primitive Technology. He doesn't say a word, but I learn a ton from his videos, just how he done stuff. Okay, Bushcraft Barton still films, cool. So Mike's still doing it. Yeah, Primitive Bushcraft, or not Primitive Bushcraft, Primitive Technology. I learned a lot of stuff there, and I watch a lot of his videos. Like, I'm going to try and do clay this summer. I found a clay deposit. I figured out how to silt it down. I'm going to try and do some of his techniques for, like, making pottery and things. And, I mean, there's a lot of good information for a guy that doesn't say a word to the camera that comes out of his videos. And, I mean, I'm sure we're missing people, and it's not because we're not like we're against you or anything like that. I just can't think of them because there's so many. Yeah, I know Mike. There were some personal things going on there, Mike Barton, and the videos petered down a little bit, so I didn't know if he was still producing them or not. But it's good to hear that he's still putting some out. He's a real cool cat, decent guy too. So if you haven't checked out any of his stuff, check them out. I think Cliff Serpentine, however you say his name, he's still putting out some stuff. They're an interesting watch. Does a lot on edibles. Does some great courses that we've talked about before. Man, there's just so many. Far North Bushcraft.
Anyone with kids, Little Bushcraft Adventures. I was talking to her. She was on a couple of the podcast or the not podcast, the sites I'm on. She's a woman and a couple with a young kid that's been doing some camping. I've seen a few of theirs. They're looking interesting. I think they just did one where they made an oven out of a ammo can. That might spark a memory in your head. I didn't find a haircut thing, so I don't know what the question was.
I'm not sure what the question was about your hairdo. I missed it as well. But yeah, that's kind of rolling into the end of this. We're at an hour and 15 minutes, like normal. So what do you think? T-shirt time? As we wrap this up?
Sure.
So, crap. I thought I had one here. I guess I don't. But, truth be told, we only had 2 submissions. I mean, I don't want to say disappointing, but I was hoping for a few more, not going to lie. But we did have 2. So that's better than nothing. And I think, if I can do this without looking completely weird.
No, that's impossible, buddy.
Oh, man, I think I just got to check to see what I got going here. So, you're going to have to excuse a little bit of broadcasting information there. But anyway, first up, we have Chris Hillier. As you can see, he submitted one to us here. And I believe this is him and a buddy out in Newfoundland. And they're just kind of chilling by fire on some pads they cut down, which looks like some fir boughs. So that was kind of neat. He sent that in to us. And the other one we have is from Alex. And Alex, I'm not even going to try your last name. No, screw it. I'm going to try your last name because I got an interesting last name too. Zuriski? Sorry, Zuriski? Zuriski? Anyway. You can make fun of me on the attempt, and I swear, man, it's nothing personal. I just am not that great at saying hard words. But anyway, yeah, he sent us out. He was making a spoon, and it's like minus 45 there. So very cold, got out, was able to send this to us. And that's the little carving kit he's got there. And I mean, kind of neat to see somebody out, and it was a good time. So
did he say where he's to?
Sorry?
Did he say where he's to?
He not specifically in this email, but he has told me before, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit I forgot.
No.
But I could probably look it up.
For privacy reasons, we're not going to announce this.
Yeah, I mean for personal reasons. But yeah, so how do I transition back? There we go. Took me a second, but we're good. So yeah, those were the 2 submissions we had in there. And so Alex and Chris, thank you for the submissions. That was great. How do you want to go about doing this, Ben? Do you just want to flip a coin? And because like I said, I had this big elaborate plan for like multi-people, and unfortunately it just didn't pan out that way, but that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. So we have a coin. Nova Scotia NYS hard not to, eh? Oh, Nova Scotia Yak Fisher. But yeah, there's tons of people out there, tons of great YouTube videos. So let's do this. Let's say heads is Chris, tails it's Alex.
I was going to say there's a loon and a queen. So who wants to be the loon? Who wants to be the queen?
Let's go with Chris is the queen. And okay, it sounded better in my head before I say it. So queen is Chris, loon is Alex.
Okay. I'm going to completely embarrass myself and not catch this.
Oh, yeah, you're going to lose that. So what do you got?
What do you think it is?
I'm going to say it's Alex.
It's the loon, yeah.
Alex, you just won yourself a t-shirt, buddy. So if you can, shoot us a private message, because we don't want you to put your information up here, of course. Shoot us a message with your shipping information, and we will get that out to you. And the shirt, of course, is going to be much like what I'm wearing here. If I'm not caught up in my mic, it is the Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures 100th episode, and you'll have to get in touch with Ben. I don't know what our color combinations are, but there might be options. You are going to have to contact Ben and Missy G Makes, and they will see what they can accommodate for you. I don't know what. There are some limitations, but you'll have to talk to them. But in any case, you got yourself a t-shirt. We just need to know your size, your address, and we'll get that sent out to you.
Sweet. Oh, well, that kills an hour and a half. I hope nobody feels we stole from them for that.
And hopefully you guys had some fun with this. I mean, I think it was enjoyable. We covered quite a few topics. Not super in depth to any one of them, but I think we covered a lot of them with some good information. Hopefully. And if this is something you guys enjoyed and you'd like to see us do again, let us know that. You can email us at theatlanticbushcraft.ca. The email address is there. There's a contact thing. You can comment on any of our videos on YouTube. You can send a message through any of our podcasting stuff there that gets broadcast out. There's a link, send a message, yada, yada, yada. You can hit us on Facebook. I mean, any way you want to get a hold of us, let us know what you thought of this. If you want us to do it again, it's something we can definitely do again. And yeah, once again, thank you for all your all your folks' support, I guess, to be more politically correct now. Thanks to all the support out there. 102 episodes, 2 years, almost 2 years into this. 2 weeks, it'll be 2 full years. Or at least that'll be 104 episodes, which is, 104 weeks. Close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades. But anyway, yeah, we're coming up on 2 years into this. We're still going strong. And you guys keep coming back to listen to us ramble on about stuff. So obviously we got to be doing something okay. And we love hearing from you. So hopefully we'll get to hear some more of your guys' experiences. And we'll catch you next week. I got a topic for next week, Ben, or are we just going to shoot from the hip like we normally do?
We are definitely going to shoot from the hip.
Perfect. Love it. Did you ever find the comment about your hair? What the question is?
I just asked what's with my hair. we haven't caught up to Really Big Monkey. He's got 236 videos, by the way.
I know. I've seen that, but I mean, We'll get there. We'll get there.
What's with my hair? After more years than I care to mention, I actually finally made it to a hairstylist for last little while, so I'm trying to look a little less like a slob. I apologize if that's offensive to some of you.
Oh, man. You look better than me, Ben. Like I got the old neck beard going on here. Ooh. Yeah, see, this is gonna go. I got the old neck beard going on. My hair looks like I ran through the bushes. Yeah, you're definitely more styling than I am.
Anyways.
Uh-oh.
Get out there, have some fun. I hope you enjoy yourselves.
And Roundabout Media, I'm not sure. The internet must be getting a little slow down there. But for future, if it helps you at all, we started an hour and 20 minutes ago. So whatever time it is now, subtract an hour and 20 minutes, and bam. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Night off.